Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are just getting started here. How about we hear from our participants, put in the chat where you are currently attending college.
All right, I see.
Hello, Vicki.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us. Hi, Grace. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Dr. Bird. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Julio, for doing that.
Problem.
All right, so Julio will get us started and we'll jump right into the panelist portion of it afterwards. So
Yes, thank you, Nicolette. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen real quick. Nicolette, let me know if you're able to see that right in front of you, the presentation. Perfect. Okay, thank you. All right, everybody, hello. Just want to thank everyone here, the students and the panelists for being here, for taking some time out of your day. Again, some of you might know me, some of you may not. Again, my name is Julio Barron. I'm one out of 3 college success coaches that works here at the American Indian College Fund. So I work directly with our scholarship recipients, being able to help them out, to do their scholarship components here for the scholarship, know about resources and programming and connect them to people to help them out with their educational and career goals in life. And then just kind of like a quick introduction for everybody, for the panelists. Please introduce yourselves, like what your name, tribal affiliation, position, and organization you work with. And we'll go ahead with Vicki first.
Okay, good afternoon. Yate Vicki Baldwin Yanishia Bethlejane Nishla Tohono Bashishin Panagahnieshiche Ashin Shanell. I'm Vicki Baldwin. I serve as a student success and retention coordinator at Arizona State University. I specifically work with our American Indian Student Support Services Department, and I've actually been an employee with ASU for 35 plus years, with our department going on 15 years soon. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Vicki. We'll go ahead with Grace.
Good day, everyone. Aniak Jugit, Grace Salcido-Siquieros, Apiki, South, Arizona. Good day, everyone. My name is Grace Salcido-Siquieros. I'm from South, Arizona. I currently work at the Tohono Community College. I'm an academic advisor and career specialist here, and I am Tohono.
Thank you, Grace. And then we'll go with Dr. Karla Bird.
Thank you. Oki ni stu ni daniku nadu gyayaki ni amskapi pikani. My name is Karla Bird. I'm a member of the Blackfeet tribe, and I work in tribal outreach for the University of Montana.
Awesome, thank you. And then lastly, Shanell Horn. Go ahead.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's not letting me start my video. I don't know, it says the host has stopped it, so. Anyways, my name is Shanell Horn. I'm the transfer coordinator for Blackfeet Community College. I am Blackfeet as well, so. Start video. Oh, there it is.
All right, then. Thank you all. And again, appreciate you all for sharing a little bit about your guys' self. So again, just for the presentation itself, for the students, this is our second day of our webinar series on insights on transferring colleges for Native American students. So this is our second day right here. Again, for the students that were here yesterday, I appreciate you all. But just to kind of have a quick recap, yesterday was one of our for student perspective interviews to kind of know from two of our current scholars to discuss, you know, specific what their specific experiences in transferring schools, you know, their story and insights, and anything else to kind of share out with the students as well. So it was a pretty cool turnout, you know, a lot of insightful stuff that everyone was able to learn from. And then today's session, a great session, of course, you know, is for the transfer professionals panel, a panel of staff who will assist the transfer process of their institutions, you know, hear from the administrative side and what to expect, you know, from transferring from school to school. And then just for the students, you know, just to win prizes and gather attendance and everything and feedback. This is our event evaluation, the QR code. So if you could scan it right there, you know, when you get the chance, you could do so, or you could do so at the really end of this session, at the really ends. So, and again, you know, just to kind of go over the prizes and everything. So the specific giveaways, depending if you were here yesterday or not, or if this is your first time, that is definitely okay. So there's kind of like a system, you know, like you get an Amazon gift card. And if you go to both events, then you get put into an entry for an Amazon Fire tablet. And then also for the first 30 people that are registered for these events and attended will be mailed the transfer swag mystery box. So kind of keep that in mind. And then everyone was able to introduce themselves already. So I appreciate you all for being here. Then we'll go ahead and take it to Nicolette. Take it away.
Thank you, Julio, for sharing all of that wonderful information. And thank you to our panelists for joining us today. Nicolette Weston, Imachiapi. I am Oglala Lakota, and I'm also a Transfer and Admissions Program Administrator for the American Indian College Fund. So once again, thank you all for joining us today. We're going to start off with asking our professional panelists. These are all of our panelists we have invited here today have experience working with our tribal colleges and universities, and you know, also working with students in the tribal colleges and universities, which also are, you know, transfer students. So we want to really be able to provide more resources out to our students who are considering transferring. You might be in the process of transferring right now. You know, maybe you're just contemplating it, wondering what transfer is. Or you might have already transferred and you have that experience under your belt. So either way, you are in the right place today to learn more about transfer, tribal colleges, and hear from a lot of the panelists who have a lot of experience already in all of those areas. So to start off, I'm going to ask our tribal college and university representatives some of the questions first. Julio will ask our Dr. Karla Bird and Vicki Baldwin some questions to follow up after that. So let me see here. I'll pick Grace. So Grace, do you currently work primarily with transfer in students, transfer out students, or is there a combination of both?
So we definitely, well, I definitely work primarily with transfer students in general, and it's definitely a good combination. One of the key things that I do is try to identify our new students as to whether or not they're, one, transferring in from somewhere, and two, do they have plans to transfer out of TOCC and graduate from TOCC. So once we've identified those students, then I start working closely with them, one, looking at any transcripts from other institutions that they may have attended, and then two, definitely starting to coordinate that plan with them as far as starting those discussions of where they'd like to go after TOCC, or maybe they're already at another institution where they're just coming to TOCC for those extra classes of support, like a reverse transfer. So that's my focus area, though, is pretty much everything transfer. I will say TOCC, since they have fully integrated all of their programs, certificates, associates, everything can be done online. So we are seeing a lot of students come in to TOCC, and just our last number was just over, I believe, 1,400 for the fall semester. So we're definitely seeing that increase of our students from all over the U.S., especially students that are coming here to do some reverse transfer work so they can continue their current education at another institution that they're at. So I definitely enjoy being able to be a part of that student success. And it's very helpful to be able to offer those types of guidance to them, because higher education is stressful, and the more support you have from your community, the better.
Thank you, Grace, for answering that and sharing, a lot of, what the tribal college you represent and how transfer ties in there. Shanell, I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you work primarily with transfer in students, transfer out students, or is there also a combination of both?
So there's like a combination of both that I work with. Right now we're primarily working with like helping students this semester transfer out into bigger universities. Beginning of the semester, we were helping students transfer in that were wanting to transfer back into BCC. So we're kind of a combination of both here at BCC. So.
Thank you, Shanell, for answering that. Julio, do you want to go ahead and take it away?
Yes. And just to kind of be able to share out to all the students, from everybody's perspective from their specific college, I'm going to say the same question as well. So again, do you work primarily with transfer students or transfer out students, or both? And then kind of elaborate on that question. And I'll put that on the chat as well. And then that'll be for Dr. Karla Bird first.
Thank you. I primarily work with transfer in students. So they're transferring in from tribal colleges, in-state colleges, and out-of-state colleges. However, we do have the occasional instance where maybe a student wants to take summer school at a tribal college. And so we certainly work with our tribal colleges to work on those types of course offerings.
Perfect, thank you. And then the same question for Vicki, please.
So at Arizona State University, we actually have 4 campuses in the Phoenix metropolitan area who cater to our on-campus students. And of course, we have a number of students who are online. As far as my position is concerned, we do all of our pro staff who serve as student success and retention coordinators. We service all students, whether they're incoming, whether they're undergraduate or graduate students. Over the past year and a half, I've been starting to build our transfer initiative. So we call it the Indigenous Sun Devil Transfer Program. And those students are the ones that I'm going to start focusing in and putting more efforts and work into that particular cohort group of students. So they will be prospective students coming in, those who have been admitted, those who are going through the process. And then of course, we do have different types of resources and services to help those students who are actually graduating, especially if they're considering graduate school. So it's all aspects of the transfer student process.
Thank you for sharing that feedback. That's very great to know. So thank you. Go ahead, Nicolette.
Thank you all. Those are some really wonderful answers. I just love to hear everything about transfer. So the next question, Shanell, I'll go with Shanell. What are the benefits of completing an associate's degree before transferring?
For us, it's, I guess, lower cost. For me, I started here at BCC before I transferred to Northern, MSU Northern. So for me, it was just a lower cost. It's a lot cheaper. It's closer to home. You're not paying as much right off the bat. And it's a lot more smaller classes. And I just think that it's great that a lot of students start at community colleges before they move to a university. Some students say they're ready for a university and they might not be. So for us, I just think the benefit is, lower cost, you're closer to home, you complete your 2-year degree, and then you move to a 4-year where you're more ready to proceed and be more successful. And yeah, I think that's what the benefits are.
Thank you, Shanell. That is really good. That's really good feedback to know. Grace, what are the first steps the student should take when planning to transfer colleges?
So for our transfer students that are transferring in to TOCC, one of the first steps I always try to recommend to them is getting those official transcripts sent from each of the prior institutions that they have attended and sending them to TOCC. That's one of the first steps that I try to get them started on, because sometimes it can take a little bit of time in between, and we want to start moving them in their program of study, selecting courses. So getting that done first is really helpful. For our transfer out students, one of the first things that I try to recommend is having that student explore their interest area, and if they have already identified that interest area, then maybe they're able to identify a university that offers that program of study, and then we'll be able to look at that program of study together and be able to help curate their academic plan here at TOCC to be able to transfer that to that university. As far as TOCC's partnership with Arizona's universities, the primary benefit from earning and graduating from TOCC with an associate's degree is them completing that AJAC block. So when they complete that, it transfers as a whole into those Arizona universities. So that way they have like already 60 credits from their program of study. I can't say that's the same for universities outside of Arizona, but that's our partnership with our Arizona universities. So definitely get some good things here.
Thank you for sharing that, Grace. Yeah, definitely would like to know how that partnership was built. I'm pretty sure that took a lot of legwork and a lot of, advocacy to build something, for transfer students to be able to take advantage of that. Go ahead, Julio.
Yes, and thank you for all that insight as well too. I'm going to share the next question in the chat for the panelist. So this question is, how do I know if my credits will transfer? So kind of elaborating is like, what is the process of that, or what do you tell those prospective students, when they have that specific question come up? For this one, we'll go with Vicki first.
Okay, so how do I know if all my credits will transfer? In-state, just as Grace had mentioned, so we do have partnerships with many of our Arizona community colleges in particular. In the Valley itself, we have 10 community colleges that make up the Maricopa County Community College District. We have what we call a pathways program. So students, they can start at any of those 10 community colleges and work with their academic advisors, so that those advisors would be guiding them into the respective program that they're interested in. So if they were, say, for example, going into a business major and they're at one of those colleges, they would be working with those academic advisors to be informed of the classes that they can take to actually transfer to ASU to get into that Bachelor's of Business program. As far as other students who are outside the Maricopa County or out of state, we have on our admission site with Arizona State University what we call the Transfer Equivalency Guide. So students, I usually recommend, especially if they are out of state or out of the county, I ask them to, okay, let's go look at your current program that you are actually admitted into right now at the community college or another institution. Now, let's just say that they took 50 credit hours and they want to go down the same path with their current degree. So what they can do is they can take, let's just say, English 111 out of the county. They plug in English 111, they put what institution they're at, what semester they've taken the class, and then they hit Arizona State. They at that time can see whether or not that class is equivalent to our English 101 program. And if it is, then that's pretty much transferable. So it's a little bit homework on our students' part, and if they are challenged by what they're looking at, then I go ahead and request that they schedule a meeting with me so that I can walk them through the process.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's always kind of good to know that there's like a specific tool or someone to go to just when those questions come up. So I appreciate that. And we'll go ahead with Dr. Karla Bird with the same question.
Yeah, so in Montana, we're part of the Montana University system, which we have the Common Core numbering. And so that means all the institutions that are part of MUS system, as well as some of our tribal colleges are part of that Common Core course numbering system. So that means if you take a particular class, English 101, and it's a tribal college that's part of the system, it will transfer to U of M. So we have 7 tribal colleges here in Montana. 5 of the 5 of the 7 are part of the Common Core numbering system. With the other 2 tribal colleges, we have to work on conversions, and that conversion is, for instance, Salish Kootenai College is on a trimester and we're on a semester. So those conversions can get, have to be converted from the credits. So we also have a tool called Transferology. So if you Google Transferology at the University of Montana, you can do a self course evaluation to see which credits will transfer. And this is a really good tool. Like if you're looking at a couple institutions, you might want to do a self-evaluation to see how your credits transfer to different institutions. Then when you apply, you'll receive an official course evaluation from our evaluators during that process. I do want to say that if credits are transferring in that do not meet the general education requirements, sometimes will be considered as electives. That's why it is so important that if you think about transferring it is so important to look at seeing if you could obtain your associate's degree, whether that's a AS, AA or a AAS, because when you transfer with a 2-year degree, all of your credits are accepted. And so then you're not in a process where an evaluator has to evaluate all of your credits to see if they convert appropriately. And so if you transfer in with an associate's, it's so much more streamlined, and you get more, and you have all your credits accepted. The other thing is our 2+2 agreements even streamline it more than just than finishing an associate's. But if you have a 2+2 in place, that's the most streamlined process, especially from a tribal college to the university. Here at U of M, we have a lot of 2+2 transfer agreements with our tribal colleges. We have transfer agreements in social work, anthropology, and public health. The other thing I wanted to talk about is we do have an Indigenous first year experience here at U of M. And so last year was our first year where we had 20 Indigenous students who were in a living learning community together. So they get to live in Miller Hall together. We're just now opening applications for a new cohort, and those have been open to not only first year students, but also our transfer students as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Everything that was kind of said kind of brings me back to being an academic advisor at a community college. So these things come up a lot. So I'm glad you're able to kind of share this information with all the students here. So I appreciate you. Go ahead, Nicolette.
It's awesome. Yeah, I'm toggling between the questions here. I know we really want to touch on like the financial part of it and then also the resource part of it. So let's just get let's ask the finance questions. I know that, transfer really comes with a lot of financial cost, and students sometimes don't know where to get those extra supports in order to transfer, and it can be really stressful, right, on our students. So I don't know if you know the exact number, but Grace, how much do you think it usually costs for a student to transfer college? And then the follow-up question would be, what are some ways students can help with those costs? You know, financial aid, work study, things like that.
So I am not 100% familiar with those costs, but from my own experience, as far as I started my journey to transfer to NAU. So far, that transfer cost has accumulated an application fee as well as I forgot what that fee was called, but it's due at the start of my semester, which I believe is $300. The application was, I believe, I think it might have been 45. I'm not 100% sure. But one of the things that we do try to do for students who may be facing some of those fees is we try to look at their local areas because again, TOCC has students all across the nation. So what I try to do when a student comes to me saying that they are having these financial setbacks and are trying to move forward with application costs and maybe it's like a processing fee or something, we try to connect them with local resources in their area that might be able to help them cover those costs. We also refer them to our financial aid office who can connect them with different scholarships available, as well as being able to connect with the university themselves and their transfer coordinators to find out maybe there might be a tuition waiver in place that the student might qualify for. So definitely looking at all those aspects because sometimes we just definitely get hit with those numbers and we kind of get jarred. And so being able to have a fresh outside pair of eyes to look at those resources that they might not see immediately is definitely helpful. But I can only imagine that some of these transfer costs can be upwards of a few $100s, if not thousands.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Grace. I think it's really important for our students to know like the reality of what it's going to cost. That way they can be prepared. Shanell, I'm gonna follow up with asking you the same question. What do you think what's the ballpark range for what do you think it would cost a student to transfer? And also, what are some things that you do as a transfer coordinator to help students with those resources or to find those supports?
So I don't know the exact like amount to, I guess, transfer. I know our application fee isn't that much. When people transfer in, they just fill out a readmissions application with me or Ellie. And I think like our resources would just be reaching out to like our financial aid. I know we have our higher ed applications, and that helps students with their fees and stuff throughout the semester. Sure, we have the tuition fee waiver and scholarships and all of that in place. I do help the students. I had a couple actually that I just helped transfer out into bigger universities. So yeah, I've been helping my transfer students currently. I think I only have like 3 or 4 right now that I'm working with. So I'm currently helping them find scholarships and everything to build and then help them move out. So
Thank you, Shanell, for sharing that. Julio.
Yes, thank you. So for this one, I know we were kind of like talking about like scholarship, knowing how to pay for school and everything, but just for the students that don't know what work study is, the question is, what are work study job opportunities on your specific campus? So yeah, so we'll go with Dr. Karla Bird for this one.
Yeah, so as you're completing your financial aid application, there's a few things to consider. As you're completing your FAFSA, you might be interested in work study, and you might qualify for work study, which is an opportunity to work while you're going to school, which is a great way to bring in another source of revenue because college is really expensive. And sometimes your financial aid, you might not receive a significant amount back to pay your bills. And so work study is always a really good option to consider. We have some really great placements across campus. Our American Indian Student Services takes in 2 work studies. We have work study locations for our BIPOC communities, sorry. But some other things to consider is we also have a website called Handshake, where let's say you don't qualify for work study or you didn't put in. We also have student career opportunities. And so we have an entire website dedicated to employment for our students. And so there's definitely lots of ways to think about how to fund yourself through college.
Thank you. And the same question goes for Vicki as well.
Okay, so federal work study. So basically, for those of you who are not aware of what federal work study is, it's basically additional funding resources from the federal government. And how you do become eligible for that is, of course, filling out your FAFSA. So for students who are considered need-based eligible, that means that you probably qualify for a Pell Grant. That's when the federal government will inform your respective institution that you are also work study eligible. And what that does mean is that, say, for example, we do hire student workers. We call them our CISO assistants at each of our 4 campuses here in the Valley. And basically what that we have, there's 2 types of positions available when we're talking about student employment. We have hourly positions and we have federal work study positions. We do advertise our student positions as hourly positions, as well as federal work study. And what that does mean is if a student, for example, does not qualify for the Pell Grant because, let's just say, parents' income is too high, so they don't qualify for need-based aid, then they can actually still apply for our positions, and we would pay them 100% out of our AISSS, American Indian Student Support Services budget. For those students who are Pell Grant eligible, if they do apply and we hire them, and they do qualify for the federal work study program, that means that we pay a portion of their whatever their wages are, and the federal government will also kick in the balance of whatever that hourly pay is for the student. So that's basically how we work with our students, whether they are Pell Grant eligible for work study, or if they aren't and they still wish to have employment at the university, not just our department, but across the board altogether. There are hourly student worker positions as well. So just to get clarification on that. So for those of you who may be considering employment when you do transfer, or even at your current institutions, if you see jobs that say federal work study and you apply and they say that you're not eligible because you're not federal work study eligible, then ask if they do have hourly positions, because you would still be able to work, and actually your department or whoever you're working for would be paying your wages at 100%.
All right, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yeah, go ahead with Nicolette.
Yeah, that's very helpful. I'm learning a lot just by being part of this, webinar. So we'll move along to resources. I really want to touch base on resources. What are some resources that you would recommend, that you would, have students seek out, or something that's been really super helpful that, colleges offer, or, something similar to that, that's just been a really useful resources? And how important is it for students to seek out resources in transferring colleges? I mean, we'll start with Shanell.
So what me and Allie did when starting, we created like a little checklist for the students to kind of help them, gear them towards transferring. And then I guess we started working mostly with just telling them, like, this is all the stuff that's happening on the current campus that you are looking at. And I think building resources and building a community around going to your school is huge. Transferring can be scary for a lot of students. I know it was for me. And I directly found our Native Center at the university I attended. And that was huge for me. It was natives for me in a community that I didn't even know. So I think it's huge when you look at it, and I just, like the Native Center on the campus in Missoula, on Bozeman, and I just think that's like where a lot of people gravitate to. And I think joining clubs and societies and all of that is huge. You learn more, you expand more, and you build your community and your friends that will help you in the end.
Thank you, Grace. Shanell, for sharing that. Grace, go ahead, if you want to follow up with that same question.
So one of the standing resources that I always recommend is the American Indian College Fund. There's a wealth of information on there, and it goes beyond local resources to national level resources, which is why I try my best to use that. That's my top tool that I reference. But beyond that, I go specifically down to that student. Knowing where it is they're transferring, and then connecting them with the resources to that transferring college. If they are, identified as a Native American, I try to make that connection with the cultural centers at those universities, because it has been, I know for myself, sometimes it's a culture shock when you go to these big universities and there's not a lot of people that look like you anymore, and you're not sure where to go or who to go to, and seeing familiar faces, people that have a community like yours where you've come from can be definitely more welcoming, and that student is more inclined to ask for help, more inclined to talk to someone there. And again, they have those universities and those cultural centers, they have a wealth of information within their own programs and world. So being able to get on a personal level with these students to find out where they're going and connect them to those resources there is what I try to do, as well as any local resources for them as well. Because again, I'm working with students that are like in Alaska and they're in Oklahoma. So I definitely try my best to bring it down to a local level.
Thank you, Grace, for sharing that. Julio.
Yes. So just before the Q&A in a couple minutes, this will probably be the last question for now. So this one right here, what is the most difficult thing you encountered in your personal experience? So for your position with transferring schools, it could be a personal thing from yourself or what a student you work with, and how did you overcome it? And I'll put this question in the chat. And we'll go with Vicki for this one.
What is the most difficult thing you encountered in your personal experience with transferring schools, and how did you overcome it? I can't say it's the most difficult, but what I see a trend in it, and that coming from a smaller institution, whether that's a community college or a smaller university in general, can be very challenging. Arizona State University has over 100,000 students enrolled within our entire university. That does include our online students as well. But from my perspective, some of the challenges that I have encountered with our transfer students in particular is if they are coming from those smaller colleges and they're coming to a research one institution as large as ASU, that is like culture shock for them. Some of the students are not prepared for the enormous, ginormous, big classrooms. We can go anywhere from a classroom that is very intimate with 12 students to a classroom that has 400 students. So just that alone tends to be a huge culture shock for students. So my advice to the students in those respects is definitely to start networking, not only with their peers, but also to just connect with their instructors, because once they establish a relationship with their instructors and let the instructor know that they're just not a number in that class of 400, then their instructor will be more inclined in many cases to work with them if they do have situations that come up. So if they had to miss an exam for whatever reason, because they weren't feeling good, maybe the instructor would give them some leniency and say, okay, well, you can do it late or whatever the situation may be. So those types of situations, students are just very sometimes intimidated as well. So that kind of ties into the same thing, to be asking for resources. Once again, from those smaller colleges where they may have Native staff, they may have peers that they can rely on to get some assistance and encouragement or whatever. It may be a little bit easier. I remember my first experience at Arizona State back in the dinosaur age. I was like in most of my classes, with the exception of one when I was in college. I had one Native student in class with me, and she was my roommate, and that was in our Shakespeare class. But all my other classes, when back in the day, they were entirely, I was the more minority. I was really the minority in an institution as large as ASU. So it was very challenging, and not to have our Native resources as large as they are right now. The department I work for did not exist back then. So I was navigating campus all on my own. So we're thankful and we're very blessed to have the resources that we currently have. And that's why I enjoy my position as well as I do.
All right, thank you for sharing that. That was amazing. We'll go ahead with the same question with Dr. Karla Bird.
Yeah, I would say my biggest challenge was, even though I was 4 hours away from home, it felt so different from being home. And sometimes when we think about our students from tribal communities, home is really where family is, relatives, elders, community, a sense of belonging, culture, powwows. And so then even though you're driving maybe 4 hours away, and it might seem relatively close, it can feel like a different world and sometimes a little isolating. And so what I always recommend is to join student clubs, to go to American Indian Student Services. Like I mentioned earlier, we have Indigenous first year experience where you get to have a built-in sense of community with other Native people, and so that's significant. We have a couple other programs that are really important for our first year students. So one is Indigenous first year experience, of course, Trio and Gear Up, and then a third program that not a lot of people know about, but it's called Montana 10. And so you have to be a Montana resident, but the program provides holistic support, and they also cover your tuition if you have unmet need on your tuition bill. They'll cover it for up to 4 years. So this is a pathway to a bachelor's degree, really. And so great program. The other problems I see that students experience is affordability, being able to afford the cost of tuition fees, housing, and meal plans can be pricey. And so we do have a few programs that are specific to serving Native students. One really popular one is our Indians in Psychology program, which is a pathway to a doctorate in clinical psychology, one of the few programs that we have where you can get a doctorate paid for. And then, of course, we have Sloan and STEM. If you're a STEM major, we have scholarships specific to that. AHEC, which is those students who are in health professions. Sea Change is really a gender equity internship opportunity. And then our Native American Natural Resource Program. So we have specific pots of funding for specific majors. And then we also have our overall Native American scholarship, which is due every spring. And then the last piece I want to talk about is our tuition waiver. So if you're Native American and you're not necessarily enrolled, but you're a quarter blood quantum with combined tribes that are from Montana, then your tuition is waived. One of the questions was talking about transferring to another state. And so one of the things to be aware of is sometimes we have our tribal students who are in Montana and maybe they transfer to North Dakota for a year and transfer back. It can mess up their residency where they don't qualify for the tuition waiver anymore and then have to apply for residency in Montana, then apply for the tuition waiver. So just be mindful of that because that isn't common information, but it can certainly impact a student's ability to afford college. And then the other piece is the transfer of credits. The other piece is our financial aid has stipulations on being in good standing, and one of those is sometimes we have a credit limit, right? And so making sure that when you're transferring, it's ideal if you transfer with the degree. Otherwise, you get so many credits that get put into electives, especially if you transfer to multiple institutions. And so you just don't want to be in a position where you're nearing your credit cap with financial aid, but not necessarily on a graduation plan to getting the degree. So just be mindful that when you're transferring, you're a student that receives financial aid, that you're transferring with financial aid in mind.
Hey, awesome. Thank you for all that insight and resources in the story as well too. So appreciate you. Appreciate you all, of course. So Nicolette.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you guys for sharing a lot about, transfer. And I know we have some attendees that are graciously putting things in the chat, and we're trying to get to answering everybody's questions. Just keep in mind our transfer webinar today is just with the professional panelists, and we picked, TCUs and the mainstream universities. We don't know specifically which tribal colleges or mainstream universities our attendees are currently at. But we highly encourage you all to reach out to your academic advisor. That would be your very first step in trying to see what your college currently offers. What are the resources that your college has right now? It's really huge and something that we, really try to encourage our students to do, as well as to become an advocate for yourself. And, our resource today is just by, bringing up a lot of this transfer stuff. It doesn't specifically mean you have to attend any of these colleges that are on with us today, but we just really want to encourage and support our attendees and our students into okay, what are some ways that you can now take from today's webinar and take it back to your college? And okay, I've heard about, this awesome program that Dr. Karla Bird is talking about. I want to know now, what does our college have? What is my college currently offering for me? What are some resources there for me? So please take everything that you learned today and heard from our panelists today and take that back with you to your communities, to your family, to your colleges right now, and use that information to really advocate for yourself, for resources and financial resources, and gear yourself up for that transfer process. And if you already transferred, you can always give back. So look for ways to give back to your colleges too, to reach out to other students and help them and support them as well. And I don't see any other questions in the chat. So I guess we'll wrap it up today with, asking our panelists to share any tips or advice. Dr. Karla Bird just put one in the chat for you guys. You guys can drop them in the chat if you want. We welcome all of our attendees who are attending today. If you have already transferred, please share any tips or advice for other students or attendees on the call. And, let's share all of that information with each other, and that way we're supporting each other and helping one another. Julio, do you want to go ahead and wrap up the last bit of the slides?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Get that real quick. All right, guys, thank you all. So I'm going to share this one last slide on here for everybody, especially for the students. Here's the event evaluation again. So if you can scan the QR code, we'll appreciate all the feedback that we get from it, but also it puts you into a chance to get put into the raffle as well. And again, I want everyone to know about our social media platforms that we have. everything is at Native Pathways. So we have everything from X, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. So check us out on those. And then for the students that have not yet applied yet or didn't know about it, here we go. Here's another reminder. We always tell this to all our students. Application is still open right now, and you can still apply to it until May 31st of 2024 of next month. And this is to receive that priority review deadline. So make sure you have everything situated. And then there's the link right there as well too. And I'll share that on the chat in a bit. But yeah, no, other than that, no, I appreciate you all. We appreciate the panelists for sharing your insight and experience working with transfer students, and I appreciate all the students for being here this evening as well to hear our panelists. So thank you all.
Yes, thank you all. And Julio, just to clarify, that's for the scholarships, right?
Yes, the
The
scholarship.
link.
Yes.
Okay.
I want to share that real quick. Let's see. Here.
Awesome. So yes, our scholarship application, we have one more month to complete the application. So please, if you have not completed your applications yet, make sure you are hopping on that link. And we also have, I believe we have resources on our website too as well to any questions you may have about your application or application process. All right, well, that wraps everything up for today. Checking the chat, I don't see anything coming out. All right, Julio, do you see anything more? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all again for joining us today. 1 hour goes by super quick. I think it was a lot of information shared. So I really thank each one of our panelists today for joining us. Wopila, Chichie, to all of you and all of the work that you guys do within our colleges and universities and for our students out there. So thank you all again for joining us.